Let's talk about the biggest developments from the weekend in the recruiting world. And there was quite a few. I know the dead period starts in February, but this weekend, there was a lot of action as we head into that dead period. So let's get into it. But first, guys, do me a favor right now. Jump on board and hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's get into some of these developments. Jackson Cantwell, the industry's #1 overall player, makes a major cut to his top schools. He is now down to a top 6. Got Georgia, Miami, Missouri, Michigan, Ohio State, and Oregon. I would say there's no real surprises in here. I mean, Michigan makes it. Maybe I thought Tennessee was going to, I would say maybe to me, Tennessee not making it is the biggest surprise, but no major surprises here in terms of the teams that made the cut. However, this definitely if you were a program like a Nebraska, like a Tennessee that wondered where you stood with Jackson Cantwell, well, you got your answer. You're either out or you got a lot of work to do. But the teams that are in, they are legitimate players. I think I know it's early. It's very early, but I could see Georgia, Miami, Mizzou, Michigan, Ohio State, or Oregon. I could see any of the 6 programs landing Jackson Cantwell right now. So what's next for Cantwell? It's not a decision. It's his official visits. Now that we got a top 6, I think you can kind of see where these visits are going to go. I would be surprised if he did not take an official visit to all of his top 6s. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think that's what's next for Jackson Cantwell. I think we see him take these official visits in the summer. Then I think at the earliest, maybe we see a July, August, September decision for On3 industry #1 player, Jackson Cantwell. All right, from one #1 player to another, we got #1 quarterback Jared Curtis. He locks in an Auburn official visit. That is right. The Auburn Tigers are the 4th official visit. Now, they'll actually be his first, but the reason I say 4th is because Jared Curtis already locked in June official visits to Oregon, Georgia, and South Carolina in that order. Now he's put Auburn on the books, and Auburn jumped the line. They're going to get him on campus May 16 through 18. So an early official visit. How does that play out for Jared Curtis if he's making a late decision? Will this visit be too far in the rear view, or does Auburn get in there and really make a big impact and then maybe get him back to, you got that Big Cat event at the end of the summer. There's some ways that Auburn could look at this, and I think it's a good thing. However you can get the #1 quarterback on campus, just get him on campus, and that's what Auburn did. They're going to get him there for May 16 through 18. So we'll see who else locks in for an official visit during that weekend. It could turn out to be a really big one. All right, next topic I want to talk about is Nebraska canceling their spring game. Now, this relates to recruiting. Just hear me out. The reason Matt Rule canceled the spring game, I think, the main reason is so his players don't get poached. He doesn't want to put on tape, and we're not talking here about the starters. Like, we're not talking about Dylan Raiola. We're talking about the 3rd and 4th stringers. The guys that kind of play the majority of the game. They're in the 3rd and 4th quarter. What he's saying is, I don't want to put on tape what some of our younger up-and-coming guys are doing, only so schools can come knock on their door and say, hey, I know you're not on the 2 deep at Nebraska, but why don't you come here? You'll be a 2nd stringer. You'll be a starter. So basically, Matt Rule doesn't want to put that on film for other teams to come and poach. And to relate it back to recruiting even more, this is usually a big weekend for visits. The spring game is a time where the coaches, there is a big game being played. Well, a big game in terms of development, but they have a lot of time to spend with recruits. So it'll be interesting to see how Nebraska navigates this. I'm sure they're just not punting in total on having a big recruiting weekend. We have to see, does that big recruiting weekend now come earlier for a scrimmage or something? We'll just have to wait and see. But Nebraska canceling its spring game due to recruiting also impacts its recruiting. So we'll see how this plays out for Nebraska recruiting. All right, the last big topic we got to talk about is USC's Junior Day weekend. They had some stars out in LA. There's big Junior Day weekends all across America, but I think none bigger than USC, which is why we're going to have Scott Schrader on the show, and we're going to go in depth on this. But having Chris Henry Jr. there was great. Jonas Williams, a big-time flip target now from Oregon. Could he be flipping to USC? We'll see. But I think one of the biggest, most important names on campus was Xavier Griffin. I know he's already committed to USC, but he's from the state of Georgia, and we know what has happened historically with these early Georgia commitments. Well, commitments out of Georgia. But the reason I think it's big, not just because he was on campus in LA, but because Georgia and Alabama, both programs that I think if anybody's going to flip the elite linebacker from USC, I'd be looking at both of those programs had big visit weekends, and he was at neither of them. He was at USC. So a huge weekend as the Trojans sit at number 2 already, number 2 in the 2026 rankings. They have a legit shot at the number 1 class. We're going to go more in depth on that, but these were some of the biggest developments from a busy weekend as we head into the dead period. You guys talk to me. Was it Jackson Cantwell, Jared Curtis, Nebraska, USC, or something else? You guys let me know. Comment section below. What was the biggest development of the weekend?